Jason, I had talked about David Crowell and, Calm down. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming this afternoon. We're excited about this project along the River Overlook project. We'll have the walkway and have an overlook there. And we've got the folks from Neil Schaefer here, and our council is looking at we're going for a grant on this. The council won't have to be paying for this. There's going to be a grant that we'll get that'll take care of that, and we really appreciate that. Not having to spend the city's money for that. So we're going to turn it over to Neil Schaefer, unless Lisa has something that we need to say.
And no, it's wait, did you want to say something? Let her come up and introduce the design. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, y'all. My name is Whitney Summers. I'm with Neil Schaefer Engineering, and we've got a team of engineers that have been working, and architects, that have been working on this. I'm used to saying engineers, that have been working on this project and looking forward to this for quite a while. So these are our architects over here. This is Matt Taylor, and this is Davis Phillips over at Studio 8. So they'll be doing the talking tonight, not me. So good for y'all. So this is a transportation alternatives grant. That's what this, the grant that's funding this project. So it's a federal grant. It's through the Department of Transportation. The sidewalks around the Court Square and adjacent to that was funded with previous transportation alternatives grant before. So the city's got a great history of getting those projects out the door with that grant. It's a $1.3 million grant. And so based on this tonight and what happens Thursday night at the city council meeting, if there is a shortfall, don't worry. There's lots of transportation dollars out there. So don't, I'm not concerned about it. The Department of Transportation, they're getting lots of dollars out the door with the new Transportation Modernization Act quickly. So we're in good shape there. So this grant through TDOT, there's the contract requires the grant to get to construction within 3 years. So the time is ticking now. This is phase 5. So previous 4 phases were the sidewalk projects that are referenced, and this is phase 5. We applied for this grant, the city applied for this grant in 2021. It was awarded in 2022, and then here we are moving forward. It takes a little bit of time, honestly, to get the governor's blessing, get the big check, sign the contract. So that takes a little bit of time. But this this multi-use path down through, it's already there. So, I mean, that already exists right now. But we're bringing it up to ADA standards. It'll be a little bit wider. The landscaping will be a little more kept looking. The fence will change. There'll be lighting down through there. So it'll be really safe. So that will be the smaller changes. The big changes is what you want to hear about tonight's Overlook, and I'm not going to steal their thunder on that. But this was part of a master plan that was developed, approved or finalized, I should say, back in 2018. So just, you've hopefully seen this before, heard of it a little bit. And so that's where that came from. So it's been a long time coming that city folks have been working on for a long time. So it's very exciting. There is a sign-in sheet, hopefully, that's floating around. Please, please, please sign in. And that's all I have. But do not be shy. If you have questions or comments, please ask. Please, please. That's what we're here for. So, and if there's something that we can't answer, then we'll just let you know. We'll say, hey, we'll have to get back to you on that. So that's perfectly fine. Yes, sir.
Just to make it clear, we've already been awarded the grant.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You already have $1.3 million right now of what's been awarded. Yes, sir. Good question.
What is the estimate for all this?
Well, we'll see. We'll see. So, obviously we're trying to stay within that. That's the green plan, is to stay within that realm. But if something that's decided that kind of goes beyond that $1.3 million, then that's when my job starts hardcore, is that I'll go after more grant money for you. So, but that is what we're aiming for. So,
and did you say the 1.3 is designed or earmarked towards certain pieces of the puzzle?
So that is for the construction of this project. So you have signed a contract with TDOT, and they said, yes, when you're ready, you've got the money. It's there. It's there in their bank accounts, just not made it to you yet. But yeah, you've got that money. You've signed a contract that you've got, the city has.
Okay. And that includes the widening ADA part of the trail,
Correct.
the lights and new fencing, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
So
Yeah.
usually whenever I walk down through there, I'll be honest, I wind up cutting through parking lots instead of actually staying on them down the trail because I'm not walking down, I'm zipping around. So I couldn't remember for sure what it looked like.
Yeah, and it kind of stops right now.
Mhm.
Stops right here-ish.
Okay.
Been down through there, it's
Right.
kind of gets gnarly,
Mhm.
but it stops right here-ish.
Okay.
So I'm not trying to speak too much out of turn, but the grand plan is to
Yes.
whip it on brown.
Right.
Carry it over there.
Just want to make sure what just the Overlook. It didn't call us.
It does. It's up. Mhm. So it looks great. Any other questions? Thank you both.
I think that's it.
Okay, thank you all. And I'll
Okay.
turn it on over.
Good. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Whitney. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Davis, like she said, and Matt and I were from Studio 8 Design up in Nashville, Tennessee, and we are very grateful to have this opportunity to make a very exciting new overlook for you guys that I think can be really special and get a very cool and exciting new landmark for the city that's going to bring a lot of people in and to be enjoyed for people in the city. So, just to start, we've got 3 concepts to show you guys, and we're just gonna get all the way through my little song and dance first, and then chit chat after and see what you like or don't like, and go on from there. So this is a little what we heard page from the city and others of things that we want or don't want in the overlook. I'll just kind of run through them all briefly. Approximately 50 occupants, and that's with room for maybe tables or permanent seating or non-permanent seating. And, allowed for a way to have it heated in cold seasons or shaded in warm seasons, etc. That goes with the varied amount of enclosure, whether it's totally open, totally covered, or a modge podge of both. There's not going to be any HVAC or plumbing required on this. It's just going to be electrical for any temporary lights or permanent lights or things of that nature. A very important bullet point is that the design should relate to the public square and courthouse. We want all 3 concepts in their own unique ways, sort of allude to the city and draw your attention back to the city center for people to go and experience. We have the location being close to the dam and away from the highway to sort of block the noise a little bit and give better views and a better experience of the dam. There will be no restrooms. Those are going to be at the existing bank building in the parking lot nearby. I think we will be renovating those and have that available for the people. We want the overlook to tell the history and the story of the river and the town. That's a very important part of this whole experience is really talking about the culture of Shelbyville and giving a recap as you experience the overlook. And along with that, we want to draw in some local elements and character of the city that are going to be incorporated in the design, whether it's materials or the way you move through it or what it's made out of. And last but not least, we want to draw in tourists off the highway, bring people in and let them see what it's all about here. So without further ado, wrong direction. These are a couple of case studies. These are just some projects we were looking at in preparation for designing these 3 schemes. And they kind of have a wide range of location and movement and form. But one thing all these have in common is that they all make a form of gesture. They all draw your eye in a certain location, which I thought we could utilize very well with the Shelbyville design.
I do it carefully, so don't jump to the pages.
There we go.
Oh, see,
Told you fine.
I know. it.
We'll figure it out, don't worry. So before I jump into the first concept, a little bit of explanation as to why it is where it is. We wanted to play with this axis from the courthouse to this ideal overlook location. And in doing so, we wanted to take the public square and expand it a bit to a more larger urban grid. So it all triangulates on this one point, giving you an ideal view of the top of the courthouse and of course to the dam. There we go. And here's just sort of an aerial view of that diagram where it all triangulates on that one point, and I believe be able to see over these smaller buildings in the immediate view of the overlook to see just enough over those buildings to get a beautiful peak of the courthouse there. So our first concept when thinking about the history of Shelbyville, we started with looking at the seal, and obviously it says right there, the Pencil City, which we had a fun time learning about. We had no idea. And so we had some fun with that concept and thought, what if it's made out of pencils? And so thinking of pencils as structural members, we can use them in a variety of ways, whether it's something scrambled or something that creates a linear movement, which is the route we ended up going. So we have this first concept as sort of a boardwalk overlook that cascades out over the bluff. And you can see how in plan view, it turns that corner of this new urban grid, and it sort of completes this ultimate idea in a very unique way, all while being on that direct axis to the courthouse. And the geometry of the overlook sort of meanders just off the greenway and so it sort of flows with the river and creates an experience that you can either go out there and have fun or just continue on the greenway. This is initial conceptual art of what it's going to feel like when you're out on there. We've got our pencils extruding out from the ground, creating this sweeping arc that throws your view out towards the dam, sort of anchored by this trellis structure that's going to be on the inside of the boardwalk, where we'll have some permanent bench seating and act as sort of a route for the overlook, so to speak. But what's important to see here is how you can really get that suspended feeling being out over the bluff and the river and really emphasize that overlook feel. Here's a little sketch from if you're across the river at Fisherman's Park. You'll see I have one sketch view per concept that I sort of call my magic moments of how they all relate to the courthouse, which I was talking about, and how this arc is going to just meet at a point in the middle that should make this shining little point towards the courthouse. And it could create a very special moment, I think. And this also just gives you an idea of how the overlook presents itself in front of the city and acts as sort of a landmark, like I was talking about. But you can also see here coming in from the highway, it's certainly an eye grabber. And the idea is to have the pencils, they're going to be hexagonal in shape. And the points are going to be eraser ends, and we're going to have some lights on the tips, and there will be red lights like erasers, or it could be multicolored or something fun for the seasons, holidays. There's a lot of fun potential there. And here's our aerial view, and I have a rough little diagram of where we think the proposed park location is going to go. That sort of signifies the entrance to the greenway and the park and the elements to follow down the Greenway Trail. And so we have these on the aerial views, just so you can see the relationship between the overlook and the park entrances and how we think there's some special opportunity to have those two play along. So that is our Pencil City concept. On to number 2, which is another very known fact about Shelbyville, is the walking horse capital of the world, also on the seal. And we had fun with this one as well. A couple precedents on this concept are some very famous pieces of architecture that emphasize a very heavy linear roof plane supported by thin linear structural elements, and it creates a fun geometrical play that almost creates a floating roof. And so in plan view for this one, we thought, why not take the horse track, make it an overlook? So we pulled the geometry from that, situated it on our corner along the axis, and we want to have this overlook pavilion interact with the trail and sort of almost force people to go out and play on it, you know? And it creates a really cool interactive dynamic trail experience, which you'll see in a couple views as we go on. But this overlook has more of a permanent roof around it. And you can see it has very thin linear members, like I was talking about, with that roof edge that we want to almost disappear into thin air with the sky. And I think that this design has a lot of elegance to it. And we're thinking some warm wood tones that go with the earthy feel that plays along with the celebration stadium. Also, speaking of which, sorry, all good.
Too soon, didn't
The iron signs that you go through to enter the stadium. We think we could have a fun play with that and recreate them to have some sort of signage for the city cascading along the structural members as you're coming in from the highway. I think that'd be a really cool welcoming sign as you're coming in. And now here's our sketch view for this one. So after you go out to the end of the overlook and then turn around, the empty area cut in the roof and the ground almost creates like this perfect picture frame of the courthouse and the clock up there. And it always just is alluding to the city and creating these special little moments where you say, look at that. Then you hop on back in. You also notice I put horses on the railings. I think this would be a very fun thing if the railings tell the story of the walking horses, and it maybe each railing can mimic their movement. Have kids run around as horses or something.
They do.
I know I would be personally. And we can, have some fences be signs that, give facts about the city. And that is something that can pertain to all concepts. So to be just this one. And this idea could also continue into the immediate path on the Greenway if we wanted to expand the railings from concept to the overall grand scheme. In this rendering view, it sort of also gives the idea of being suspended out over the river. And I have some faded back vegetation coming up through the middle because we are going to have to redo the whole bluff. And there is an opportunity for some sort of garden element, have some growth come up in the middle, add some green to the space or none. And like the first one, really emphasize almost floating out over the river. But this view gives an idea of these thin edges. And I think that there's an opportunity with the rhythm of the columns to have some seating, or if there's some sort of play between both sides and some crossover, there's a lot of fun opportunity. But I think this is a cool way for people to learn about the history of the town. And here's our aerial view for this one. So you can still see the presence it's going to have from the highway. It's very unique. And you can see here how it interacts with the Greenway. And we want it to play with the park maybe and have some sort of formal entryway with the columns, which we can do with all of them really. But I just think there's a really good opportunity there. So that is our walking horse scheme. And concept number 3 is where we take a bit of a modern twist on things and think of a form of architecture that could be the standard for what's to come on this new Greenway development. And so a few case studies here, obviously they get as crazy as something wild from Italy, but it raises a lot of questions that we tried to answer with this design. And again, it goes back to that idea of making a gesture and directing your views places, which I really liked. So the geometry of this plan still plays with all of your local axes. And what's important about this scheme is how it is geared to put your focus towards the dam and almost act as a blockade towards the highway in a sense. And you'll see we have some interesting techniques with columns and curves to try to achieve that. So it's a little funky. And see with this little rough sketch here, what the idea was to bend this roof in such a way that it folds out towards the courthouse and the dam. So if you're coming down the greenway, it almost sucks you in, spits you out towards the dam, to put it elegantly. And in reverse, when you're finished with your Overlook experience and go back, I think we have a really cool moment right here with our folded roof that's going to come back at such a point that, as the last two have done, gears your focus right towards the courthouse. And I think it's just a really cool experience, personally. Another view from this angle talked about having different experiences approaching it from both sides. And from the highway, you sort of have that straight edge with the linear colonnade and more of that grand stone wall. Whereas from the side of the dam, the wall pulls away to reveal a cantilevered viewing platform that really suspends you out over the edge. And the columns and roof on this side bow out to throw your views out towards the dam like the others. Here's a view from the inside. So where the roof is at its lowest point would be right there in the middle where we have seating areas, and then it's gonna, like I said before, fold out and just indirectly guide you towards what we want you to see and experience and focus on. And
Oh, sorry.
you're good.
Jumped too soon.
We could put pencil columns in this one too. And this is our last aerial view for this guide, where it, I think, really acts as a landmark and has a great opportunity for a monumental signage below with a very cool, new and exciting geometry that's almost floating up above, and creates this dynamic experience that people are going to recognize and want to come in and see off the highway when they're passing by. And here they all are together. So that's about it. These are our three concepts. You can see they all are very different, but we can pick and pull things from all of them to create a happy medium. Unless everybody is obsessed with one of them, we can go that route. But none of them are near done. They will evolve with your guys' feedback and feedback from city and just some internal idea sketching. And we're going to make something really cool and special for you guys. So thank you. And would love to hear what you guys think. And we're going to, after we get some comments, we're going to set up a board of just this slide. And we have some fun colored stickers that you can put on if you have one that's your favorite, and get a little bit of direction as to where we think we're headed and help everyone come to a conclusion. So that's my little song and dance. Thank you all.
Yeah, so we'd love to hear what you all think, what you love, what you hate, what, about each of them, about any of them. Because while all of these are grounded in things that we've observed and read and studied about Shelbyville and this specific site, it matters what you guys think. It's intended to be something that you see from a distance as you come into the city, and will help draw you in or draw visitors in and help them know where they are. If they come to the square and park and want to go down, they have a landmark to find their way back, so that we've created the connection at this trailhead to hopefully carry this river walk down. And this at least opens up some thought about, well, there could be future overlooks. And so if you like one and want to build the other two in the future, you know, we can set them aside and save it for the future. But the idea that they don't have to be the same thing, just repeated, but we can look at, well, what's special about this point on the Riverwalk? What's special at this point in Shelbyville? What unique story about history or something that happened here do we want to tell? And then the Riverwalk can help tie all of those together. So you get a series of chapters along this Riverwalk that becomes, you know, much more than just an asphalt path. So that's been sort of our thought process and how we've started this and what the foundation we wanted to lay as the first, you know, strong move of creating a Riverwalk that's going to only get better and richer as we continue down the river and allow for lots of stories to be told. Yes, sir.
Was the council, we saw this somewhere. Somewhere.
About 2 weeks ago.
It's great. I like all three concepts.
Great.
But as I said here today, just really, you know, 'cause you had to rush that on to meet. Is there any way you can implement the pencil and the horse?
Absolutely. There's details like that that could work into all three of these schemes. You know, we obviously have columns and structure to support this that could incorporate the pencil, you know, concept. Using the eraser ends for lights to get festive lights that change colors, bringing the horses into the railings and different opportunities. So
Engrave the pencils.
yeah,
That's great.
that's right. I mean, little details like that really help tell the story. And I think that's one of Shelbyville's unique. I've always known about the walking horse. I have not always known about the Pencil City. So it's just a really cool, you know, piece of Shelbyville's history that's very unique, and a lot of cities don't have that story to tell.
Exactly right. That's exactly.
So
The first one is the only one that does not have a cover on it.
mhm,
Is that correct?
it is.
What do you folks think about having a cover or not having a cover?
Me and my bald head would appreciate it.
Coming off a month of 100-degree temperatures.
That's one thought, yeah.
And
So along that line, let me ask this question, because it's been a while since I've actually walked right through there.
Sure.
So the elevation of where that overlook's gonna be and that sight line up to the courthouse, has that been verified with either a drone, or how did y'all figure out that you are gonna be able to fully see the courthouse top from out there that far?
it's
Mostly-
speculation at the moment, but we do have a drone pilot that has gone and shot a bunch of views and
Right.
can't continue to do so. So we will know like exactly.
We haven't been able to get out over the bluff to that point yet.
Yes, I just want
But-
to make sure that, you know, we're talking about.
That's
really
right.
focusing on
Right.
that.
Mhm.
And then not only that, but I know the city is in talks with the folks about those buildings down there.
Right.
And I know one of the things was about a rooftop bar area.
Mhm.
So how is that going to play into these designs? Or is that rooftop bar area going to be able to block too
Mhm.
much of the courthouse?
It'll be, the rooftop bar would be back over here. See this building right here?
So it wouldn't be.
Then the
blocking
Gazette building, the Jimmy Kyle building, they call it, or the Gazette building's right in front of it.
Mhm.
And then you can see the top of the Trollinger building that kind of goes beside it. Can you see it where I'm pointing right there?
Right.
So the bar's gonna be on top of the Challenger building, not the Kyle building?
I'm not sure at this point. William, do you know? William is I didn't introduce people, but we've got city council people here. We've got, Marilyn Ewing, Gary Hale, Stephanie Isaacs. William was here.
Yes, yes.
Okay, and I'm Randy Carroll. I'm the mayor now. And Buck Ballard, who's our public works, and, we've got Mike also, who is our recreation director also. So we're all kind of involved in trying to do something with the river down there. Is the concept 2 and concept 3, the flooring of it, it looks like it's going to be like redwood or something like that, or some kind of either wood or
Probably be
plastic
some
wood
kind
or
of
something.
decking,
Mhm.
yes.
Okay.
And I think that's part of what we have to work through with budget and materials.
Okay, and the first one is gonna be metal, probably
I was thinking
aluminum or something.
wood still, but gray, sort of like a boardwalk.
More of a weathered
feel,
fence wood. But I think they'd all three have wood so they feel
Yeah.
more like a pier overlook kind of feel. And then we'll likely have steel in the structure with
Mhm.
some concrete at some point, because we do also want to plan for the river to rise and potentially flood
Absolutely.
and withstand that
Absolutely.
and let the water go. That's another of the reasons that you saw the curve in option 3 was it's on the dam side. So if the water's coming down river, it can sweep through those arches, but also kind of be pushed and curved
Yeah.
back around. So,
Yeah, I was just thinking about maintenance, right, Bub? Don't worry about maintenance.
Fence is gonna be pedestrian friendly. I guess what I mean by that is, it'll be short, tall.
they'll likely be guardrail height for it to meet code, but we haven't received any direction to try to make them 8 feet tall to keep people from climbing over them. So I think the idea is that this should be, a place for runners and cyclists and people who want to park at the square and go get an ice cream cone and go walk down the Riverwalk ways. Or if an amphitheater does happen down the Riverwalk, at one point you could park here and walk down the Riverwalk to get to it. So I think everything is encouraged to be pedestrian friendly and welcoming, and a place to stop at the railing and lean on it and look out at the river, that you don't even have to be at the Overlook. But the Overlook gives you a landmark as a place to either meet somebody or a place to go, or a place that hey, I parked right by that and I'm way down here. I see where I have to go to get back. And then, oh yeah, I know where I am relative to the square because of pulling that emphasis back into the heart of downtown.
And there are some ADA rules that will have to follow, so the height has to be, it's like, it has to be minimum height, to lean on, has to be, the rebar for that has to be a certain, depth in the soil. And then if there's a bar across the bottom, like a horizontal bar, it has to be so low, because you don't want a wheelchair wheel getting stuck under there, so we'll have to adhere to a lot of that kind of like red tape stuff that we have to follow. Yeah.
But yes, the bottom line is that we envision it being very pedestrian friendly as something to walk along that's not gonna snag your clothes with barbed wire and, or chain link that, will grab sweaters and things like that. So we want it to be something that feels as part of the character, the environment of the entire Riverwalk.
And your question, and we didn't answer it because William wasn't here, but the rooftop bar, I don't think that would be the line of sight of the courthouse, and then I don't know for sure, but that was a good question. Very good question.
It'll maybe if you
Yeah.
look at one of those, it'll be past things. It'll be the tile building.
Okay.
So I think that's.
That's what I'm thinking, yeah.
We were looking at the two buildings that step down in height, that are really on that diagonal axis
Yeah.
to the courthouse, that they give us that opportunity for the taller buildings to frame the view. In addition to framing it with.
Buildings will have.
Okay.
The Duck River Overlook? So why aren't we looking at the Duck River?
Why don't we do what now?
Why aren't we looking at the Duck River? No, we're talking about this courthouse thing.
Oh, we
Oh,
are.
but you'll be looking at the Duck River from the other.
There's no description of the Duck River. There's no description of anything to look on the Duck River. You've got the dam there, and that's good. That's good. But we had steamboats, from what I understand, we had steamboats going up and down the river.
And concept 2 brings some of that steamboat language into the design along with the racetrack. And we have the entire fence and other chapters to tell in the Overlook that we can bring in the stories of the river as well. We needed sort of an initial concept to start these, and they all open up to the rivers, to the river
But
view.
we have no concept drawings of that.
Well, we have looking out towards.
These pictures are the pictures you see real estate sold at. These look really, really nice little pictures, but that's not how it really looks. That's not how it really looks out there. If you put that structure where you want to, you're gonna have that ugly overpass that the cars drive over. You're gonna have that ugly thing right there, very close. Not as long as it seems here. That thing is very close and very loud.
We understand. We pushed it further away from where the original site was for that reason. And so we've got it up closer and it's a higher point. It's still there and we can't do anything about that. So what we want to do is embrace it and use this as a little bit of a landmark so that people driving see that there is a trailhead and that they are in Shelbyville and it becomes a little bit bigger. So this is serving multiple purposes, not just a place to go sit and stare out, but a place to meet people, to a landmark for people to see along the Riverwalk or from their car and realize, oh, I'm in Shelbyville if I'm driving through, or I'm coming downtown. Somebody told me that's where I meet them. It's very easy to find from a wayfinding standpoint. And so we're trying to think about this from a distance looking at it as much as being on it and looking out, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of Duck River stories to be told, and we need to do more research on that, and would love to incorporate that more in the entire length of this thing, not just make it each thing just one story. Like we said, we could combine elements of all three into one scheme. And that's the kind of feedback that we want to get from you guys, so we know what the priority is to bring that in and incorporate it into the design.
Right.
And there are also some properties from the location you want to put there where houses were built in the 1920s.
Mhm.
You can see them.
Mhm.
And that should also be incorporated. in
Sure.
Older buildings.
Absolutely.
Very good.
So taking the steamboat concept, as Jane mentioned, is there something that you guys can instigate, put in there to indicate that
Mhm.
this is what?
Oh, sure.
So that's actually part of the grant application about the scheme. So not they will have to have it in there, but that was part of the grant application, telling the story about, because it's a transportation grant. And so it's telling the story about the steamboat, that used to go down the
There's-
river. So there's-
Whatever form this takes, there's ways of either incorporating artwork in the
Signs.
railings or old photographs and drawings that are maybe etched in plaques that you stop and see as stopping points along either the trail and the fence or along the railing of the Overlook. And so we have a world of opportunity for those kinds of stories. And that's what we definitely want to hear from you all about, what those stories are. And we know some of the bigger stories, but we don't know the fine details that some of y'all do. And that's why we're here and not to only get it tonight, but any ideas can continue to come to us through the city, or we can come back down and talk to people. We're happy to share our contact info with you all. So
I mean, some people are really good historians. We have.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I think that giving, the more you
Mhm.
can educate while you're there in
That's right.
seeing the
Mhm.
history.
Yep.
The better. I mean, the pencil and walking horse.
Yep.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
And yes,
Uh-huh.
definitely both of them for me.
Right.
But the more you can do
Mhm.
down there, I know that 1.3 is not gonna last forever.
Right.
But the more you
Yep.
can do, the better.
Sure. Yep. No, that's great. Thank you.
You're trying to jump in, so wait.
That's unusual. Usually quiet.
So I was at the first meeting as council a couple weeks ago, and I take a look at them, and I couldn't see them well because I was far away and all.
Mm.
And immediately loved the pistol concept.
Mm.
And then you showed the horse show ring, big over, and I liked it. But then I actually liked the bottom one as well, the wall. But now I don't like the wall at all on the number 3, because I think it looks like a building that takes away from the powerhouse.
Okay.
And I think the powerhouse needs to be, hopefully eventually restored itself, and it needs to have the glory for that.
Right.
So number 3 is out for me. And then, as everybody else is saying, I love the look of the number 2, the big oval, especially that view of the courthouse in between that inner ring. If that inner ring was lit up,
Sure.
and then actually if you could put the pencils, the hexagon shape on the outer of the oval ring.
Yep.
And then there's way too many horses on that fence. I know you just did it for the drawing, but if you could tell the different stories
Right.
around that fence
Mhm.
instead of all the horses. And one that I'm saying to be the only person in Shelbyville that appreciates that our square is the Shelbyville plan, the first American design town square.
Mhm.
It's the layout.
Uh-huh.
It's a hashtag design,
Right.
and the city planners then laid out our square like that,
Okay.
and then it was so popular, several hundred cities in the Midwest
Then copy the.
copied it.
That's
And
that's
so
great.
The words of Shelbyville plan
Uh-huh.
on there would make me happy.
Absolutely. I mean, that could be one of those great stories to tell when you get to the end and are looking back, then maybe that's where that story is. So when you do have the visual connection back after you've spent an hour looking out at the dam and the
Right.
opposite side of the bank and down the river, then it's another story to tell when
And
you
you
turn
also
around.
tell the story on the Duck River around that fence as well. There's
Absolutely.
several
Oh,
stories that you put
There's
around there.
no doubt.
Mhm.
Yep.
And then maybe one horse.
Right. Which is completely fine. That's what we want to hear too. So.
So you get one and I get one.
Everybody think it's a good idea? I mean, the rivers, we've never advertised the river much and,
Well, and remember, we,
coming in from Cannon Boulevard or even looking from the square down, I think it's gonna be really pretty.
yes, ma'am.
All your designs that you currently have is for the northeast part of the riverbank.
Right.
Could the grant be used to do something on the southwest riverbank, on the opposite riverbank?
Not at this time.
Okay, because that's unfortunate, because we do have Fisherman's Park there.
That's right.
And we do have that bridge.
Mhm,
And if those things could be modified somehow to make it even a more pleasurable
Mhm.
viewing experience, that would be great. But if the grant doesn't cover it, then.
Well,
Not this grant. If the city wants to pursue that in the future with the future grant, that is completely an option
That's
from a grant perspective. But this, I mean, that's not for this specific project.
remember,
But,
this is a beginning
Right.
of a lot that can happen. We're not going to tell all the stories in one overlook because we got to leave some for the rest of this thing and encourage that the rest of it does get extended and added and built, and we get to tell those stories. So we want to set an initial tone so that we encourage and other people want to invest and they want to come in and be near this and make a good, this is all of our chance to make a good first impression for the Riverwalk. And then we get to look at, do we want another overlook, and is there something special about where it's going to be built, or another story that we couldn't tell in this one, but we're going to start, stockpiling the stories and incorporating them to become the foundation of how this is told and what happens between the points of overlooks or overlooks in different activities that might happen, whether it's a lawn or a meadow or an amphitheater or
Yes.
a picnic area, what happens along the way. And that gives you, great opportunities for, if you're walking, you kind of, it's your visual mile marker. Okay, I'm going from horses to pencils to, and now I'm coming back to horses, so I know I'm getting close. Or, keep your interest going. It's like, wow, Shelbyville's a rich, layered place that there are all of these different stories to tell. And so we're not trying to get everything in this. This is not the whole project. This is just the first chapter. And we're going to hopefully have a lot more to do. And everybody's going to be excited about what happens here to say, we need to do more.
Mhm.
Right.
And is there a layout of additional, like the whole plan that's been approved?
We don't,
There was a master plan done a few years ago that has some activities designated along it, but we don't have a full plan of that.
our city manager had it in his office, I think. He's got a picture of that, with the amphitheater all around and
Yeah.
different things like that. Yeah.
Not a formal plan.
Right.
It's just kind of a concept
Yeah.
drawing,
Right.
Mhm.
change parts and pieces over.
And I'd love to see, I was with Duck River Electric for years, and I'd love to see the old power plant come
Mhm.
back,
Mhm.
even as a museum or
Yeah.
something like that, or maybe a little restaurant there or something, but a museum. And maybe even have it to come back as a hydro plant to light some of the lights
Mhm.
for that area.
Yeah.
It's just according to the cost and things like that and how bad what kind of shape that building is in. I don't know.
Mhm.
Belongs to Shelbyville Power, which belongs to Shelbyville.
TVA doesn't own that?
TVA may own that, I don't know, and Shelbyville Power, yes, I think when we were talking about that before, I think TVA does have, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So we get the money from them, right?
I know.
On the grant,
Mhm.
there was no economic impact on that. Like that's 100%.
Oh, I'm
Coming
sorry.
from-
Say it again.
On the grant,
Mhm.
there was no economic impact. It's a 100% grant.
Oh, there is a match.
There's a match.
There's a match, 20%, I think.
You're paying 275-ish for the 1.3 million.
Right.
Put me on that number, but I think
Right.
it's pretty close.
Yeah.
Any grants we get, we've got certain percentage normally, yeah.
And what about the maintenance after all is said?
That's
and
what
done?
I
We
was
have
thinking
that
about.
Budgeted or is,
Yeah,
to look at it right now, it needs a lot of work. I think it gets missed on the mowing days and
yeah, and I agree with you, and I kind of looked at those things, and I'm sure the
Buck has the
council
answer.
has too, you know. Yeah,
Mayor Buck has the answer.
yeah, and Mike, I think Buck
Mike got one too?
passed it off to Mike, we have to take care of it, right?
It's a little bit of a path to nowhere right now, and the
Yeah.
bluff itself is very overgrown that it's
Right.
hard to even see the river from it.
Right.
Yeah,
So as part of this, when it cleans up, then it becomes something you want to take care of. And,
absolutely.
and so, but it's a very good point because you don't want it to suddenly get all overgrown again
yeah,
right
the
away.
money to keep it
That's
up.
right. That's exactly, you're right. We've thought about that, but we don't know what the cost will be, but
That's right.
hopefully in the future we'll have more, as more houses are built, more businesses come.
Right.
We'll have more income that way,
We
taxes and
may
everything.
have to stabilize that bluff too.
We need the vegetation to stabilize the
Yeah,
bluff for sure.
Yeah,
And that's a good point. We do have a landscape architect on staff,
Uh-huh.
and he's already actually looked at this, and I've got him thinking
Right.
about what would work best. So, it needs to be non-invasive. It needs to be, something that's,
But I'm-
in the area.
But I'm also talking about structurally stabilization.
Right.
Mhm.
Because when that floodwater comes down.
Right.
Yep.
It gets hit and the bluff will eventually fall down. I mean, if it does it 5 years after we build that thing,
Mhm.
boy, are we in bad trouble.
it's a great start, I think. Great start.
Well, and
Why we haven't done it before.
as we do have, set this up here, but a board of this slide here, and if you got a favorite or something, we have some color dots that you guys can cast votes or, stick them next to anything that you like in particular.
Mayor, can I ask a question? How are we gonna keep the homeless people away from there all the time if it's coming, especially?
Mm.
Because that's a real problem up here.
It is. It is a real problem, and we thought about that too, and how we would, we're going through right now with the homeless, task force and setting up some, trying to come up with some different ordinances on, you can't just arrest them for walking along a place, but we will have ordinances on where you can put tents and how long you can stay and maybe garbage, what you do with garbage and those kind of things like that. But the homeless task force between the city and the county and the Commissioner Hooker is the chairman of that. And we're trying to work with them on that. But yes, we know we have homeless down in underneath the bridge, and we also have them over here where the Save-A-Lot used to be on the other side of the river. We do have an officer with the Shelby Police Department, Officer Diaz, that has taken pictures of the homeless so that if one of them passes away, that they can get in touch with their loved ones, have pictures and information about them. Hopefully it's all been double checked, but she does a really good job on that. We're gonna have homeless communities from now on. It's difficult and I hate to be in that situation, but some of it is, things that we can do some things about, and that's what we're gonna look at in the future.
Well, and
Try to take
some
care
of the.
maybe we'll even have a facility one of these days, but we'll have to get the citizens of Shelbyville or maybe the religious organizations or somebody will have to come in and operate something like that. The city won't be able to operate it or the county. So that's something in the future too. Maybe.
Some of the ways to help address that too is by keeping it very open, keeping it very well lit, and keeping it very visible.
Right.
And so you notice all three of these schemes are all open on all sides.
Right.
They're very visible from the road, they're visible from the Riverwalk, and we're incorporating lighting into the overlook as well as the path. So when you have activity, it becomes not a place that they don't want to take shelter. They're looking for places to take shelter that are quieter and out of the beaten path typically. I mean, that's why you see them under overpasses and behind buildings. And in some of the homeless studies that, we've been a part of, it's light and activity and openness and stuff that I don't want to say discourages, but it doesn't encourage them to take place there.
Anybody want to put stickers? This is Lisa Smith, who is our city reporter,
Get your stickers
runs City Hall. But,
over there.
if they want to do that, if you want to come up and vote and kind of give an idea of what you would like, please do that.
What's the square footage approximately of each one of these?
Uh, that's a good question, and I don't know off the
Or
top
which
of my
one do you
head.
think would have probably the most square footage?
Prob-
The city circle might.
Probably the racetrack one, but they're three very different approaches to the geometry to accommodate, you know, the seated, non-seated. If somebody wanted to rent it for an event, that might be a possibility. Could you bring tables and chairs out? Do you build benches in, and those are the kind of things we'll continue to talk about as we go through this. So, and because they're concepts, they're loose to kind of fit the site right now without doing a lot of hard dimensioning just yet. We want to get that feedback to, and you'll start to see the size of them really get anchored down as we dig into it further.
Yep.
Good questions.
Yeah.
Good
We
question.
really appreciate you guys all coming out tonight. It means a lot. And we don't want to do this in a vacuum. It's a lot more fun to do with the people who live here and are going to use it. We want it to be something that want to go to, that, you know, will help encourage something that you want to see in the future, and you'll bring your friends and family down too.
Thank you. I love all three designs.
Yeah, I do too.
Excellent work.
Thank you all.
It is good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Appreciate it.
Oh, I was very happy to do it.
Y'all, come up and put a sticker on the board before you're late. Put 2 or 3 if you want to.
That's right.
Really, I want to stick around for minutes.
Vote early and vote often.
Anyway, so you kind of, kind of going right off of what she was saying, now from the view, if we could get some more done eventually over there.